Okay, so welcome. Hello again, Amanda. And
Hi, Hazel.
this time, everybody, we're not bringing out, well, we are bringing science and spirituality together. You know, the series that Amanda and I are making together over time. And Amanda is showing up in another role that she plays on planet Earth, and that's as a nutritional live blood analysis. So this is really, really crucial, I feel, to our overall health. And I was with Amanda at the weekend. I flew out to Mallorca, and just to do that for the live blood analysis, apart from the workshops that I did, was so worth it. Now, I just want to set the scene here. I have been on many different kinds of diets. I was brought up on a meat and two veg diet. Had a lot of stress. I had a mother who was dysfunctional, so there's a lot of stress basically from day one, all this affecting my blood. I then went in my late 20s to being vegetarian. I then crossed the line to vegan and raw vegan, and now I am on what you could only call an eating regime that is way beyond what the masses would take part in. So I'm really cleansing my body constantly and enjoying really good, clean food, not necessarily raw vegan, not necessarily just vegetarian. So I've done an awful lot of cleansing on my body during my earthly years. So this body that I walk about in is 65 years old and is in pretty good condition compared to most on the planet. So meeting my dear friend Amanda, I asked her if she'd do a live blood analysis on me because I intuitively felt sluggish. I felt that my blood was too thick in my terms, and it wasn't flowing the way that it could. And not only that, I was getting extremely bad cramps all over my body, not just in my legs and feet. So in pops Amanda, just this weekend passed, and I'm delighted. So I'm handing the talk over to you, Amanda, to inform people that are watching this just what goes on with our blood and how, before we rush out and buy loads of expensive vitamins that frankly do nothing for us if we don't understand what Amanda's going to teach us, listen to Amanda.
Thanks, Hazel. Thanks for a lovely introduction. This is dark field microscopy, and I've been doing it now since 2014. I was actually introduced to it by a friend who has a raw vegan cafe here, and I was her nutritionist, and I went in there one day and she'd just come back from the States and she said, "You've got to go and train in this. It's amazing." And it was one of those things that the minute I looked it up, I thought, "No, this is fantastic." The disclaimer here, it is being known in the Western medical field as a pseudoscience. So I like to say I practice live blood and dry blood art. I also, when I'm a nurse, and when I put myself through nursing school, I worked in a lab, and I used to be the one that made your lab reports. And I don't see that much different that we look at in this art than I did when I was working, as a student, biologist in the lab. So that's a little bit of background history on it for you. So basically, what we're looking at when we look at the blood, I'll show you some pictures on the screen in a minute. But the first thing we do is we want to look at how the blood cells are sized. And the blood should be floating around the body and sort of bumping into each other and gliding away these cells. And they should all be the same size. So the first thing I look at when I go and do a live blood sample are there big cells or little cells, and are they sort of like, is that showing up?
You need to hold it up higher, love. That's it. Good. We can all see the size now that we're looking at and the shape.
So they like that, or sometimes they're big.
Yeah.
And then small, which would be indicative of the big ones would be a B12 deficiency, and the small ones would be an iron deficiency. Now, this brings me to my next point that I think is really important, and I'd say that live blood analysis has taught me this, is that when I was just working as a nutritionist and a naturopathic doctor, you would see these deficiencies in people and just prescribe them the iron and the B12. And live blood analysis has made me realise that we've got to look beyond that problem. You know, why is the person this deficient anyway? And the causes for B12 and iron deficiency are normally problems to do with assimilation in the gut. B12 is becoming an epidemic. You know, they say that vegans are all B12 deficient. Actually, the vegans I see are some of the ones that are the least B12 deficient if they're eating properly. Because what's happening is when we eat things that have B vitamins in it, and especially B12, which, you know, generally comes from meat and cheese and animal produce, but you can get it from brewer's yeast as well, and egg yolks and a whole bunch of vegetables. When you eat that, it goes into the stomach, and the food that contains the B12 is mixed with something called intrinsic factor, and that requires there to be a decent amount of hydrochloric acid, HCl, in the stomach to digest the food, enough for the intrinsic factor to come and then turn the B12 into a usable form for the body. So, you know, if those elementary upper GI tract functions aren't working, you're not going to get the vitamins. So whenever I see this, the first thing I want to know is what's going on with the person. Do they have parasites? Do they have anxiety? Are they dehydrated? Why aren't they getting these things from their food? And then I want to look at rebuilding the guts, and we've talked about that in our other sessions, so you can get all the information you need there. But you've got to look at giving the gut what it needs rather than just shoveling supplements in. Supplements are just like a Band-Aid, and they're probably not even going to be taken up into the body. So it's so important, you know, when I see this, that I want to, you know, look at how we re-establish the gut health. You can see our other movies for that. The next thing we want to look at with the blood cells is how they are together. You know, are they freely flowing around? So, you know, in a perfect picture, they should be like this. When people are unwell, they'll have their blood aggregated together. And we know this because when, you know, when people have heart attacks and strokes, which are some of our most common problems in you know, the general society, it's because the blood is actually flowing around in a clump like that, which is why
you need to put it up higher, love. Yeah, higher so they can see, like, it's like grapes, isn't it? Yeah, that's it. Fantastic. Yeah.
I was just looking at how high I had to put something in the office. So when I see blood like that, I know that the person needs more circulation, and then it also is a sign that they don't have the right sort of fatty acids in their body, because when the blood gets stuck together like that, it means they're not getting the healthy essential fatty acids, and they may be eating them, but they mightn't be assimilated into the body properly. One of the early stages we see is people having some protein linkages. And that's something that normally comes from poor, it's here. Can you see those sort of grapes together?
Yeah.
That's really common when people have a bit of stress in their life, big coffee drinkers, poor protein digestion is another reason for that. And often it means that the red blood cells aren't carrying enough oxygen properly, so the person will be getting tired. When the blood is like this, it's called rouleau.
Oh, yeah.
and
Yeah.
one here.
Yeah.
And that normally indicates that things are starting to stick together. So when you see that, it's either a bad sample. So a lot of the, you know, if after this you're interested in the live blood, you might Google it and see a few YouTubes. And I do laugh sometimes because there's some people selling, you know, live blood analysis is unfortunately often used to try and sell products. So people will have a bad sample with like Rouleau showing in it, and then they'll drink the magic water or drink the magic potion, and suddenly the next sample is all perfect. So 50% of the time when you see Rouleau, you realise you've actually taken a bad sample. But if you're really seeing the Rouleau in the person, it's a sign that they're clumped together. They've got stagnation. They'll normally show signs of shortness of breath and chest pain. You know, they're deoxygenated in their blood and they have cold hands and feet. And when it gets worse, you know, you get that aggregation that I showed you before with all the blood starting to stick together. Some of the other things we see is when people are really lacking oxygen, you get these little porcupines. So people that smoke cigarettes, people that live in big cities and, you know, catch tubes every day and are exposed to a lot of pollution, they have these porcupine things. And that can also be, that's often a sign of free radicals, not enough antioxidants, pollution, low energy and poor circulation. And then we start looking as well at white blood cells. So, you know, we can, when we see someone with a white blood cell that's got a few nodules in it, like so it looks sort of like this, that's a sign that they probably have some sort of bacterial infection, and it could show that they have allergies, etc. So that's a live blood analysis, and if you just wait 2 secs, I'll actually get it up on the screen so you can see, and we'll do a session. So I'll just get one I prepared earlier. Just a sec, and I'll just, do you want to share your experience while I get this ready on the computer?
Yeah, will do. So Amanda took my blood just, was today, Tuesday, was Sunday before I left to come home. And so it was just a little pinprick, and she carefully put that between 2 glass slides and then put it under the microscope. So all looked good. And she says, oh, your blood is good. And the centre of my blood, if you imagine that bubble that she drew, and it actually looked on the screen like soap bubbles bouncing off each other very gently. But as we went deeper into it and Amanda moved the slide about under the microscope, she could see in the centre of my blood was really, really good. But from that, she determined that I'd had a lot of stress in my life, but I'd overcome it, which I thought was amazing, because there are little black holes and they were filled in that looked white to me. I couldn't differentiate, but she could. There were still some little black spots in the blood, which meant stress that I hadn't released yet. And in my words, it was from my nervous system stress that I've been through that is really deeply embedded in me, and I still have a bit more to release. So then we went further into it, but you must understand that I'm really outside the box with my nutrition and what I will do to get my physical body on a par with my spirituality on the same frequency. So the next thing Amanda noticed was like a little cell that was really, really bright amongst all the normal blood cells. And she said to me, that's a parasite hotel. You know, it's just a little blob of parasites going about. And that was leaking out, kind of exploded, is the only way I understand it, going more into my bloodstream. And the white cells weren't coming around enough to just eat up the parasites. Now, I take turpentine, the spirit of turpentine, not you know, what you go to the local DIY shop to buy, which actually deals with parasites. And chatting with Amanda after, we realised that the turpentine I've been taking had exploded these parasitic hotels in my body and was causing, I think if I'm right, Amanda, you said more acid build-up in my body.
Yes.
Right, yeah, it was causing a lot of acid build-up in my body, which was causing all these really severe cramps. And if you say like a 10 cramp would put you into a fit of some sort, mine was an 8. It was really bad. So then we realised that the turpentine was working because it had caused the parasites to explode and start to journey out of my body, first of all, causing too much acid. Hence the cramps. So my magnesium and my calcium was fine. Now, if I'd have gone to the doctor, they'd have probably said to me, or a nutritionist or a naturopath who didn't do live blood, they would have said, get some magnesium, get this, get that, get the other. And it would have done no good whatsoever, because these parasites are the root cause of my blood not working properly at the moment. So we ascertained that, and that's what's so lovely about Amanda. She goes across the spectrum, no matter where you're starting from in your journey, whether you're kind of up where I am. I don't mean up in that way, but, you know, on the outer edges of food and so on. So I was amazed by that. Was really, really pleased to know about the cramps and so on, that, you know, understanding brings peace of mind. I know how to really deal with that now, and not to take that forward into any other modality apart from working with Amanda. And then she said to me that some of the blood cells were the shape that told her I lacked in iron, that was quite depleted in iron. But there was no point me taking iron because those parasites were leaching the iron. So do with the parasites, and that's 2 things with me dealt with. I also had there were strings of cells linked together, not in great clumps, but little strings, which indicated I needed more omega strains in my blood, you know, fatty acids, and
yes.
you know, I need to do that. And also I haven't been, and I've got poisonous metals in my body, which I know is from my teeth, my amalgam fillings. So that's been on my agenda for a long time, to get my amalgams out and relieve my body of the heavy metals, because as you get older, they obviously can leach out more. So I've got a few things now that I can work on with my blood. No need to spend hundreds of pounds on supplements or anything like that at all. So I think that was about it, wasn't it, Amanda, with me?
Yeah, and definitely with you a theme of HCl production, which is the stomach acid production.
Yeah, I didn't know that until I read some of your email and you were asking me a few questions. But about 15, 20 years ago, I believed I had that from my research. Didn't know anything about, is it Giardia it's called? You asked me if I'd had Giardia.
Yeah, and Helicobacter pylori.
Yeah, well, I looked that up and I hadn't got...
And Helicobacter.
Yeah, but I did have fish poisoning once, really, really badly. Salmon, fresh salmon, raw salmon. And it was really, really bad, food poisoning. So would that be a cause of that?
Yeah, it could be. And also Giardia, for example, is very common travel bug.
Yeah.
You know, and because you've travelled extensively and lived all over the world, you know, as I explained to you on travelmating, we were only designed to walk as far as we could away from our place of birth, you know, which is probably 200 kilometres in a lifetime for an adventurous person. And now we're, you know, you've lived all over the world, so have I. We're going to places we shouldn't go. If a Thai person gets stung by a stinging nettle, they could end up having an anaphylactic fit because their bodies just aren't genetically programmed for it. Whereas we get stung by a stinging nettle, and it's a bit annoying, but it's not going to do any damage. So it's the same with the, you know, the waterborne viruses that we pick up along the way.
Yeah. So
let me just show you this sample. I'm just going to turn, so you just have to tell me what you can you see?
Oh, we can only see half of it. We can only see the top half. This isn't my blood, by the way, so just so you know.
No, this is one that was just because this is live blood.
That's good, love. That's quite good. I've got that positioned.
These cells here are different sizes. So this one's a small cell that shows the patient has the iron deficiency. These large macrocytes would indicate some B12 deficiency. And see how many of this person's cells are a little bit oval? Yeah. That's a sign of B12 deficiency and often hormone problems as well, some sort of hormone imbalance. And as many of you know, the B12 and hormones can all go hand in hand together because it's all to do with circulation and energy. We're also looking to see how these are white cells here. So we want to, you know, there should be a couple around, but there are a few more white cells than you'd expect normally. So the person's either recently eaten something that's not that good for them, or more likely might have some sort of bacterial infection. This bit here would be some citric acid, uric acid.
We can't see it, love. It's gone way down. Oh, that's better. Yeah. That's good.
So these bright bits are uric acid. Some of this stuff on this is actually from the slides. Unfortunately, there's a world shortage of good slides at the moment, I believe. So this is the live blood, and then I'll give it a tap. And we'll just wait for it to come back into focus. And we'll see that, can you see the blood moving?
Yes, yeah.
So this person's got really good essential fatty acid balance because the cells are moving and not getting stuck together.
Yeah.
And sometimes you find, you know, when you give it that tap, they start getting aggregated and going around together in clumps. I may as well show you me at the microscope while I just change positions. Yeah. So using, I use between a 40 and 100 lens. So it's, you know, really, it's really tiny what we're seeing. And this isn't the most fascinating sample, to be honest. There's not a lot going on. So when you see someone with parasites, you'll see these big, beautiful pictures. They look like a really colourful jellyfish, I think. And other times you see inside the cells, you'll see little bits of, oh, here's a few white blood cells. I might see something here. Yep, this is an example of a little bit of a bacterial hotel. So this is
parasites.
So I think of these things. Can you see this clump here?
Yeah, if you can bring it up a bit. Yeah, wow, that's big, isn't it? Anyway, yeah.
And there's little bits of orange in there that shows a bit of bowel toxicity. I think there's a couple of blue bits in there, unless it's my eyes. That's normally this person's probably taken some sort of pharmaceuticals, antibiotics, often hydrocortisone or antidepressants or something like that for allergies. But these are like, I think of these like Russian dolls. And in here is all sorts of bacteria, viruses, protozoan, and what happens when we're cleansing is we break one of these open and all these things start coming out into the system, which is kind of what we saw with you. Yeah. So Hazel had one of those on hers. I can't show you now because the blood doesn't last for very long at all. And so that all turned into a, that everything had escaped from there. So around her bacterial hotel, she had a little opening and there were all sorts of little bits coming out. And I said to Hazel, you might have some candida. And she was like, oh, I couldn't. But it's because it could have been there since she was a 6-year-old. You know, it could have been there for absolutely.
Yeah, you've frozen a bit. So she was going to say absolutely, you know, since my mother, you know, I had formula milk when I was small. So it could have been in the cells since then. So, you know, we're getting deeper and deeper into my cells to get literally all of it out. So I'm just going to chat till Amanda comes back. So anyway, apparently Candida after 24 hours would grow more in the body, and it happens that I didn't have Candida, it was something else. So that's when Amanda was saying to me about the Giardia and whether I had low hydrochloric acid in my stomach, which I have had that. So we carried on with that, and with these parasites, you know, I've been taking a very strong parasitic herbal mixture since April, and I've still got embedded in the depths of my cells these parasites. So that's what we're going to work on now. So I'm sure the parasitic herbal concoction that I was taking helped with a lot of them, and then the turpentine as well. But my next phase with Amanda will be to try and discern exactly what parasites they are, because they're going to need a different kind of treatment. So when the parasites are gone, my iron levels should be, you know, come back to normal, and everything starts to flow beautifully within me. So that's where I'm at with this blood analysis that she did for me. And I would recommend it to everybody. Everybody has got parasites, you know, well, 99.9%, you know, who don't even know that they've got it. And it doesn't have to be these great, big, horrendous worms and all of that. But just if you've traveled, if you've got animals, you're going to have parasites. So they really drag us down and make us feel sluggish, no energy. And, you know, in the end, we're quite sick within ourselves. So is there any questions so far that you might have, Tracy or Sue, on any of this while we wait for Amanda to come back? You know, with your own lives, really, because I'm sure Amanda will, well, she won't know anything without the blood, really. We won't be able to say for certain. But she does do these live blood analysis through the post, and she charges 125 euros, which is an extremely good price. But she's got her intuition there as well, because as we know in this little group, she works from her I am presence. And that, again, is priceless. So what we did at the end, halfway through my blood analysis, I just sat quietly, tuned into my I am for less than a minute, and I was energetically hoovering these parasites out of my body. And as I said, it was literally less than half a minute. She took another blood sample from me, and already the cells, the white cells, came around the parasite hotel, remember, that had broken open, and they were actually eating the parasites rather than the parasites giving free range. And that was just with a short connection to my I am presence, and me just visualizing and knowing that, you know, all was well, really, and that I could use not my mind but my higher self to start clearing these parasites up. And we actually got it on the microscope, the before and the after. So that was powerful to see that as well. So you can imagine on the plane home, you know, I was just hoovering out all these parasites, and I haven't had cramps since, and I haven't taken anything apart from what I usually do. But for me, the remedy is to do skin brushing, dry skin brushing every day, to take my psyllium husk, bentonite clay and activated charcoal every day, to start to, that was for the heavy metals more, but all the other crap, you know, the parasites and everything, to flush those out of my body. So I've started on that today, started on the skin brushing. And I'm having a lot of, I had a whole avocado when I arrived home. I've had another whole one today, and get more greens into my body, like coriander, parsley, celery, cucumber juicing again, not anything shop bought at all, to help with this heavy metals that I know are from my teeth. So that's where I'm at with the analysis. Any questions at all? I know see you put here, Sue, that Amanda's presentation is excellent. Yeah, she's very clear on what she knows. Yeah, and the higher self. So, you know, there's no real excuse for us to not do the influencing of the higher self, because we know how that really influences our body. I've always known that, but to actually witness that from blood before and after working with that was really wonderful, actually, and it just lifted me right up. So there you go, that's where we're at. And I think actually Amanda did cover an awful lot. So it just remains to say that she is available. She's making herself available to our group and to whoever watches this video to have your blood analysed. And she sends you a little kit, you prick your finger, you send it back to her, and she does the dry blood analysis. So to differentiate, the dried blood is where she hasn't tapped it so that it moves. So it's just static. And then she taps the blood on the, what do you call it, the little glass thing, and it starts to move. So we're seeing that blood in action. Yeah, that's about it, really. And unless you've got something to offer from your own health, or anything that you've experienced with having your own bloods taken and analysed. So I think Sue is typing. It looks as though she is. Yeah, I can't hear you. So Sue, you've got your mute on if you're talking to me, and I can't see anything that you've written in the chat. You still, there you are, you're unmuted now.
It's very sluggish in how it's doing things. It's all very interesting, and I suppose we can't really answer this because Amanda doesn't seem to be online at the moment, does she?
No, she's not. She's got knocked off. So
maybe at some point in a kind of sequel, it might be interesting to know what, since that she can unearth so much clarity of information that goes deep into the history of the blood composition based on various experiences.
Yeah.
It would be interesting. I think it's also pertinent to know it's one thing to identify something, and it's brilliant to identify it, but it's also fascinating to know what you do with that information.
Yeah.
And how you choose the modality or because, you know, there's such a vast diversity of opportunities.
Yeah. That sounds like one of your cats.
Yeah, it's Melandra discovering a available bag of things. It's because it's winter, they're also hungry.
Yeah.
You know.
So that's what I found with Amanda, that not only did she do the analysis, we got the solution and the way forward. We're going to do this first. So I'm starting, you know, the parasitic cleanse stronger. We're going to try something as well as the turpentine and this powerful herbal mixture. So we get to the bottom of that. And then after I've done that, you will see what my iron's like, because the parasites are no longer leaching it from me. Then we go forward from that, and I'll get my teeth sorted. But, you know, that's kind of thousands of pounds, and you've got to source the right dentist so that it comes out without causing me to go on another 2-year detox from that. So, yeah, so not only does she give us, you know, the practicalities of it and the diagnosis, if you like, but the solution as well. And the solution, actually, apart from having all your amalgams out, doesn't cost a lot of money. When I look back and think of the hundreds upon hundreds of pounds I've spent on supplements, you know, it doesn't bear thinking about. So there we are. That's where the live blood analysis is, and I would encourage you all to get in touch with Amanda and speak to her about what she can do for you. So I'm going to sign off now, and we'll put all the details below this video, this recording, and you can get in touch with us. So bye for now.
Can I just say something? Tracy, if you're there, I hope you recover very soon and easily.